Today in our Why Buy series, we're going to talk about the Porsche 993 Carrera RS. We're going to go through what makes it special. We're going to take it out for a drive, and we're going to talk about who this car is for. So let's get into it. So I'm particularly happy about this video because I just got to spend an entire weekend in the mountains in this specific 1996 911 Carrera RS. And I have to tell you, after that experience, it has radically changed my viewpoint in the way I think about this car. We'll get into that more when we take it out and when we're driving it. But I want to talk first about really what the Carrera RS is and what makes it so special. So Porsche, back in the day, had to come out with a road car to homologate their race cars that they were racing in the GT3, GT4 series. And this is what they put on the streets. It's the RS version of a C2. That's how it started its life. And then from there, they put a 3.8 liter 300 horsepower engine in the car, which is absolutely incredible. Then they stretched the fenders. They put more aero on the car. The car behind me has that huge wing in the back with the intakes on the side. And on the front bumper, you have those beautiful bumperettes on either side as well. The standard Carrera RS just has kind of a ducktail looking rear end and less of an aggressive front bumper. But so much went into the Carrera RS that makes this car so special. You know, nowadays, Porsche will come out with a car that maybe has one or two unique, distinct features that makes that car different. What's cool about the Carrera RS and these older cars is that they went all out when making this car different than all the other 911s on the road at the time. So you have a stiffened frame. I mean, that's from the get-go, a welded, stiffened frame that you can really feel while you're driving the car at the limit. You have that 3.8 liter engine that I was talking about to go in there. And then you have all of the weight savings that Porsche went crazy on when developing this car, because this car weighs 2,800 pounds. For some perspective of today's cars, even the lightest weight Porsche in today's standards is still well over 3,000 pounds, 3,200, 3,300 pounds. And that's a lightweight Porsche of today. So driving this car, there's just nothing like it today with the weight and especially the power to weight ratio of the car. So let's take it out on the road. Let's see what it's like to drive and tell you guys a little bit about my experience in the mountains with the car and what makes the Carrera RS so special on the road. So before we get into the driving aspect of the 993, I have to say I've been looking forward to shooting this video all week. The main reason is because if you asked me 2 weeks ago what I thought about the driving experience of the 993 Carrera RS, the answer would be radically different than it is today. I always thought the 993 Carrera RS was a beautiful car, one of the best looking 911s arguably. But driving it on the city roads here, the neighborhood roads, it left me wanting a little bit more. The transmission is great, clutch is easy to use. Of course, I love air-cooled cars, but this car didn't really sound much different than all the other air cools we have at Merit. And so I was left unimpressed really with the 993 Carrera RS. Well, last weekend I had the privilege of driving this exact car up in the North Georgia, North Carolina mountains. And I can tell you that opinion has taken a complete 180-degree turn. It was one of the greatest driving experiences I've had. And it's for a very specific reason that I'm going to go into in just a minute. But I think it's important to know real quick that it's really, really tough sometimes to figure out what a car is like on just highway, even neighborhood roads. You really have to push a car sometimes to understand, especially a car like this that was basically a race car homologated to the road. You've got to push them and get them at least to 70% to really start to figure out the car. So it's my little soapbox speech there, but what's the 993 RS like to drive? Well, one of the things that stood out most to me is that in modern cars where everything is electronically driven, it does everything for you. Sometimes that's a really good thing. But in this car, all of your inputs matter. The gas pedal matters. The brake pedal, where you're doing all of these inputs, matter in the car. And when you're going through these twisty roads like Tail of the Dragon, it can either unbalance the car or it can set the car up really, really well to do fast times on those roads. And case in point, we were running with cars, 991s, 992s, and we were keeping up with all of them in this car. And the main reason is once you spend some time here, once you figure out that going through a turn, the application of the gas pedal starts to rotate the car a little bit, you gain more confidence and you learn really how to drive the car. And it's just this relationship, this connection you have then with the car that's not just turning in the wheel and punching the gas. It's really subtle inputs here and there of the brake, trail braking, and the gas through the corner. It's a really, really cool experience. And look, 300 horsepower and 2,800 pounds of this car, you really don't need much more. Again, we were running with cars with 200 plus more horsepower than this car has. And then, I mean, you add in all the other things, right? You add in the sound of the air-cooled engine, the way this car rev matches in downshifts, it's so intuitive, it's so easy. The revs climb so quickly that you're not waiting. Let's see if I can. And the 6,000 RPM in this car is just a symphony. It's, if you know air cooled, I mean, it's kind of like a hot rod mixed with a 911. Just sounds so unique compared to anything modern. And that's kind of the point here, is that modern cars objectively are great, but to really get an experience where you become connected with the car, you have to go older. You have to go mechanical. You have to lose the electronic assists and everything. And because of that, it's going to lead perfectly into who the 993 Carrera RS is for. So who is the 993 Carrera RS for? This is a very interesting question because of the unique nature of this car. This car was not brought to the United States originally, so it was just in primarily Europe and Japan. Well, people in Europe and Japan like to drive their cars. They don't like their 993 Carrera RSs sitting in their garage. So it is very rare that you are going to find an example with delivery or even very low miles. Most of the cars, like the one behind me, have 10, 20, 30,000 miles on them. So because of this, I think this car tends more towards the driver side of the spectrum. It's a car that you can get in and you can experience and you can drive. Now, like I talked about in the driving video, I would highly, highly encourage you not to just drive this car in the city. I don't think you're going to get the full experience of what the 993 Carrera RS can do just driving around town. You really do need to stretch its legs. You need to take it to roads that you can push it a little bit more and really experience that balance and that connectivity to the car. Because of that, I really do think it is more towards the driver end of the spectrum. Now, the unique part of this car is if you do find a car that happens to have delivery miles or very low miles, of course, that is going to be a great collector piece. With just over 1,100 of these cars made, it falls perfectly into the bracket of being a collector car. But you have to make sure you get the right one. It has to have low miles, original paint, great service history is very, very important on these cars. So you can do a little bit of both with the 993 Carrera RS, which makes it unique and fun. But ultimately, I gotta say, you have to drive this thing. It is that good, it is that special, and is that unique. So overall, who's the 993 Carrera RS for? Gonna say the driver. Thank you guys so much. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Have a great day.